Carl and Dan here from Games, Brains, and a Head-Banging Life, gbhbl.com for short, and it's track by track time, as we're doing a rarity here. A rarity in the sense that this is a track by track for an album that is fairly modern. In fact, it came out this year, came out under a little bit of a cloud of controversy, so to speak, not in the sense that anything bad was going on or anything like that, but mainly surrounding the band's stylistic and sound changes that came with this album. Something that I'll admit I got quite defensive about when it kind of came about it, because I sort of saw what was two sides. One, which was a sort of understandable, hey, not really liking the musical change, and then others almost being demanding of the fact that you shouldn't be doing this, you've lost a fan base and stuff like that. And it's kind of like, I'm very much pro let an artist do what an artist wants to do. If you don't like it, you just don't like it, and then you get off that train and that train carries on, and you hope maybe one day you'll be able to get back on it. But if not, wish them all the best and be happy for them. If it doesn't work for the band, they will quickly learn that, they'll change it up and do their own thing, and so on and so forth. So I got very defensive of Thornhill and this album, even though I personally don't love it. I like it. I like it more and more the more I listen to it. Doing this track by track, it'd been a couple of weeks since I really had any tracks playing for it, but I was reminded, I was like, you know, that's a good song. And that's a good song. I realized the problem is with this album is you've got this whole thing where it's like, that's a good song, but it's not as good as perhaps this song from the more metalcore past, the more metalcore recent past as well. We're not talking like, 10 years ago when they were a metalcore band. We're literally talking
like last album, like 2 years ago, Darkpool.
But that's my thoughts on the album, you know. What about you, Dan?
At first, when they started releasing singles, I was like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
Because obviously, I love Thornhill. I love the Darkpool, the EPs beforehand. Fantastic. I really, really liked them. So at the start, I was definitely like, "Ooh,
yeah,
this is rough." I think these singles with the context of the rest of the album, they're so much better. Standalone, I also think that they released the wrong songs from the album to be singles. I think Casanova as a standalone song kind of sucks, but in context with the rest of the album, it sits quite nicely.
Do you think that part of the sort of choice of the singles was as much to give people the more shocking moments of the album? Because there are, one of the things that might surprise people who have heard the singles and gone, I'm not listening to the album, is that something like Hollywood and Casanova, for example, aren't reminiscent of everything that appears in the album.
Yeah, no, they are. Casanova especially is definitely a standout. I think Casanova, the song itself, did quite well for them in terms of the whole shock factor sort of thing. Because obviously you're going to get people talking about it.
Yeah.
Because as they say, like, all press is good press, which I don't totally agree with.
Depends what that bad press is, I think.
Yes, very much. I like the statement kind of rings true sometimes, but it really depends.
I think that's kind of comes around from the idea that people are just talking about you and not really in a context. For example, bad press is a bad, good bad press is a review that's slamming you, because chances are people are going to pick it up. I'll give you a really good example without naming a publication. But quite recently, as at the time of recording, a review for the new Elstorm album went up on a fairly significant publication, and it was incredibly harsh and horrible to the band, rightfully so. This is no way defensive of Elstorm, but that review probably got Elstorm more attention in that 1 to 2 days that it was being shared online than they had in the last few years. That's a mistake. There's the problem. No attention at all. Don't even bother. But like, you also then don't want bad press is, oh, by the way, you're a sex offender. That's not the kind of
no, exactly. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, definitely a shock factor, mate. The fucking metalcore Reddit was going mental over it.
Of course. I guess part of the reason why I always kind of felt why I've ended up feeling quite supportive of this is because often when we do a lot of our videos, be it track by tracks, reactions and stuff like that, I often bring up the same salient point, which is if everybody's doing good metalcore, where's the great metalcore? And everybody's doing the same sort of thing, and so on and so forth. So the fact that like Thornhill are kind of stepping away from that doesn't really offend me. I'm like, okay, there are plenty of other very good metalcore bands.
Yeah, it kind of, people are like, oh, there's too much metalcore, like, and then a band did something different. They were like, yeah, we don't like that.
Yeah, we want
back to metalcore. Go back to metalcore.
Yeah, I get it, because Thornhill were very good at what they did.
Yeah. Like I saw loads of people saying like, oh, if this had been another band, I would have been like on board with it. And it's like, no, you wouldn't have. You would have hated it either way. People love to be nitpicky about it.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the sense behind it, because let's say it was a brand new band who didn't already have an established audience, because that's the argument against such a significant change, which is you already have such a significant audience. Well, not necessarily abandoning them, because you're only hoping they're going to come along for the ride with you, but you're taking potentially that you're taking a risk and potentially taking a section of that fan base for granted, because you're hoping your name and the body of what you've done will give people, will convince these people that it's worth a shot. I don't think the taking you for granted thing works for Thornhill. Part of what helped sort of really acclimatize me to this album was an interview, funny enough, that we did with them, a written interview that's available on the site. And in it, they went into more detail than I expected for a band that size as well. And I kind of came away with the feeling of like, all right, this is risky territory, but you feel like you kind of have to do it. And how can I not respect that?
Yeah, no, there's definitely, like, I understand it as well. We're making some stylistic changes with my bands, and I get it as well, because you like, the sound is cool, but you get bored of it and you want to do other stuff and you want to have fun with it, because at the end of the day, if you're not like loving and enjoying what you're doing, then you just won't do it. And it's like, you either change your sound or you don't do it. And
very few bands go for there, and very few bands can have a long and successful career effectively sticking to the same thing. I can think of maybe one or two at most, Slayer, Motorhead, but these are really old school bands, you know?
I'm thinking of like Bury Tomorrow. Bury Tomorrow have dropped off hard, and they have had the same sound for how long now? Like, or 10 years, and they have dropped the ball hard. Like, sorry, this is about Thornhill. Bury Tomorrow's album, their last one of 2021 sucked, man. Just wasn't good. Like, they could have released the same album like 4 times.
I'm going to stop you there. There might be a reason to talk about Bury Tomorrow in depth in a little bit, but that's for a separate video, and I want to focus on Thornhill's Heroine album. It's the second album by the band, released 3rd of June 2022 by one of my favorite labels in the world, UNFD. Also really good at delivery, and particularly when it's coming from overseas. They're really good.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
That's all my Christmas presents sorted now.
No, we bought everything. Yeah, we've bought everything like that as of right now. Pretty sure. Okay, track by track, as always, we're going for each one, offering our thoughts and opinions on them. And we begin with the Hellfire Club. A coincidental name. This album was made way before the Stranger Things season 4 brought up this name. This sets the bar for the sound change. This is a track that begins ominously, but when it kicks in, it's got a much more cinematic vibe. I'll bet one with what is consistently throughout a rawer production. Except that I think it's quite clear this was by design. This was not a mistake. This was not a shitty production job. This is what they were going for. And it is a shocking Thornhill shift. It's very dreamlike, but with punch. It's not unlikable. In fact, the more it goes on, the more I find it has similarities with the likes of Deftones.
I wrote something quite similar. It's very Deftones-y. It's like Deftones and Muse had like a baby.
Yeah. Oh god, yeah. I didn't write Muse, but yeah, Muse, yeah.
I also wrote an interesting name considering what Big Show just came out. It has to be a coincidence. Like,
it
has to be. I really like this song. It's got a really, really good chorus. Like, I think, I agree with you. It was produced by somebody called George Lever, who does like Sleep Token and Loathe. He's a very good producer.
Yeah, he knows.
this was completely stylistic choice, and it grew on me massively. I was not sure on it at first for the singles, but it really did. It grew on me, and once again, with context of the whole album, it works really well.
Agreed. It's probably the best way to have started this album off, because you ultimately don't want to trick people. You're kind of laying out what to expect on this opening track. You know, if you sort of put it on your headphones and you're like, I fucking hate this, I'm not going to continue, at least they've told you this at the very start.
Yeah.
Leather Wings. There's some order amongst the chaos, but it does take a few listens to fully appreciate it on this track. The more robust guitar sound does it for me. A little bit more familiar in regards to what I think most might have expected from this band. It's got sketchy rhythm and it's a bit hard to follow along, but I actually find this one really addictive listening and almost one I enjoyed studying.
Oh, I said the chorus is really, really catchy.
Yeah.
And this song especially, it's a grower. I quite like how like the drums are super tucked back in the entire mix. And like in the chorus, you got this really subtle guitar lead that comes through. That's really nice, and I like it. It definitely, I think it sets up, like it pairs with the Hellfire Club quite well. It's got that, you got the Hellfire Club and then you got this one, and it's like, okay, cool. You get a better sense for what you're about to get as an album.
Yeah, you've come from the Hellfire Club, and it's not like that's going to be what exclusively is it. It's also like, no, we've got this style as well. Agreed. And there's arguably a third style about to enter the fray now with Blue Velvet. And I'll be honest, this is a bit more of a struggle track for me. The mellower tones mean the vocals are a lot more isolated. And I find that specific crooning style of singing, less appealing. There is a rise in power, though, as it develops, and that is an improvement for me. The melodies are much better in the second half of the track, too. But overall, I find this one a little boring, a little bland, a little forgettable.
I wrote at the start, I was like, in my little thing, I just like, I have a feeling we're going to disagree on parts of this album. This is like one of my favorite tracks on the album. I really like the ambient and melodic little guitar tones to like a bigger, even first verse. Yeah. I like how like his vocals echo out between each line, and they create a stage for it. You know, it's got it's like sound stagey. You can hear everything that's going into it, and it flows together quite nicely.
I mean, different opinions that's the point, right? It's intriguing that that's the first one. I'm sure we'll have more. I'm sure we will have more that with different views on as well. Archangel, this is the band shifting again. The guitars are quite nasty sounding here, but there's a strong sense of drama in this one too. That cinematic value and focus really prominent here. Again, we get that Deftones feel with the vocals, but not quite as distracting this time around, thanks to the buzz of the riffs. This is another one that the more it went on, the more I listened to it, the more I found I enjoyed it.
As it's one of the singles, for me, generally, they get less attention, because I would have listened to the singles and been like, okay, I kind of listened to that to death a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think they fucked up releasing this one as a single. I think it's a really strong song. I just think it kind of it in context with the rest of the album, it doesn't even make sense as a song, I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting, because it's not one of my favorites either. I like the more melodic side of things for Thornhill.
Okay.
When it gets good, it gets really good, but it takes like too long for it to get good.
Yeah, I think it's important as well to say this at this stage. This is a common theme that we've had 4 tracks in, which I think we can both agree on this is an album that requires patience and multiple listens of individual tracks, but the whole thing overall. I think, I suppose, maybe the biggest argument for why this album isn't working for overall is that it requires very few people will listen to it once and go, that's the best thing ever. that it takes this extra thing, that initial wow factor may not be there, because we're talking the Hellfire Club, Leatherwings, Blue Velvet, Archangel. It's like, okay, they're growers. The more you listen to them, the better they get, you know, that sort of thing. And that's going to continue, I think, as well. Like, there's a couple others that I'm going to use exactly the same words.
Yeah, it's going to get a bit samey.
It is. But we do get Valentine, which is very moody, very atmospheric, a little bit uncomfortable. I like that there's a bit of post-tinge to this one. And that aforementioned moodiness is something that's kind of right up my personal straight. You used the word interesting for Archangel. I'm using it here. This is an interesting track.
It brings up imagery of like an old-timey noir murder mystery.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's cool, but it's not really a standout track for me. Like, I think there's just much better.
Of course.
Like,
I think the word is cool. Yeah. It's just nice to be there. Again, like I said, not standout, not the worst either. But then we do get Casanova. A mix of effects and hard rock. This is an animated listen with a much more modern outlook. However, the overall album vibes are still present, if not a little bit muted. What really wins me over on this track is it's the chorus. The chorus is fire. And that alone makes this one of my favorite tracks on the album, because that freaking chorus is gold.
Gonna bring something up here. When this song first came out, you texted me like, "You heard the new Thornhill song? It's shit." I thought you were gonna hate it, but like, see, it's a grower. It really is. The whole thing is, and I pretty much like, I was like, this song took way too long to grow on me. Yeah, I think with how it because it was the first single as well, compared to what we knew from Thornhill, because I'd already made you listen to them, like where we go when we die, Nurture and stuff. Yeah, I wanted that, but this is also really good. Like, it gets me when it's one of my favorite songs on the album, in context of the rest of the album. Yeah, but as a standalone, not great.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. I'm glad you reminded me of that. You're absolutely right. I think much it was the shock value more than anything else, and I think it's still an oddity of a song. But by time, bear in mind in the album focus, I've gone through several already shifts and tonal shifts and things that have surprised me. Getting to Casanova at this point with just a super great chorus, it wasn't so shocking anymore. And now it just felt like it was like, cool, this is part and parcel of it, and I'm really excited by this track. So I've grown to really, really like it. It's one of my favorite on the album too.
It's good. It's good.
Something Terrible came with The Rain, a cool piece of atmospheric melodies and cinematic effects. It's very movie-like. It's simply that I think this is a cool little intermission if you want. I like it. There's nothing really to it.
Yeah, it's an interesting interlude. I like it, and there's not much for me to really say. I really like the name of it.
Yes.
And the production closer to the end is quite cool. I like like when they do stage shows and they have like paper backgrounds moving and stuff.
Yeah.
It kind of just like brings that imagery into my head.
That's cool. That's an interesting description.
It's old-timey, like Shakespearean play or something.
Interesting description. I like that. All right, well, it's Hollywood next. And chances are, like us, you've heard this one a lot, being a major single before the album released. But I still enjoy the blend of relaxed intensity, how Thornhill make it seem almost sexy and dangerous and sleek while being utterly addictive to listen to. It's heavier than your ears might initially realize too. I think that's really interesting. Again, the more you listen to, you're like, okay, this has got a bit more noise to it than expected. And I reckon, like me, the more people listen to it, fans-wise, the more, and that shock passes, the more this one just becomes an enjoyable piece of music.
It is. This is my second favorite song on the album. I fucking love it. the mix specifically, especially at the start of the song, it's so noisy, and it did have to grow. Close to the end of the song, it gets so good. When it clears up a little bit and you get that big lead, that massive chorus, it's great. And I really, really like the breakdown. It's nothing crazy. It's pretty simple, but I feel like that could be that will hurt in a pit.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most shocking things about it. The more you realize, okay, this is going to be a bit of a rage in the live environment. It's also got a very cool video to go along with it, so do check that out if you get a chance.
Yeah, definitely.
Raw, an apt title as it really does have a raw feel, yet it's rooted in modern sounds and effects. I'm really not sure about this one, as the hip hop elements fall flat for me. When it shifts, I get on with it better, and I do like the intensity of it. This one's a bit of the middle of the road for me. Stuff I like in it, stuff I don't like.
This like the last 4 songs on the album like really flow really nicely for me, and I think this is another one of my favorites. One of the slightly heavier ones, and I really like that chorus. It's got a kind of like dissonant melody, which is usually something I don't like mesh well with.
Yeah.
But it really works for me here.
Okay. Well, up to the penultimate track, it is Varsity Hearts. I love the heartfelt start of this track. That melody and the vocals really works for me. The turning up of the volume doesn't detract from that either, only enhancing things. It's got a really mellow feel, but you can never quite relax. As you know, Thornhill might shift in an instant, and of course, that is very much the case. This shit gets crazy, and I love it. One of my favorite tracks in the album, maybe even my favorite track overall.
Okay. It feels like the album ended, but I'm happy it isn't. It's one of the weirder songs. I really, really like it. Obviously, you got that super heartfelt intro, and it just gets fucking weird. And it's really cool. It feels very cinematic and big, and I think it sets up the next track really well.
We're in a total agreement here. I love this track, but I'm also glad it wasn't the finale. Because I think what they do as a finale works well enough. And it is, of course, the title track, Heron. And I will admit, I probably would have liked this to be a bigger ending, considering the cinematic, dramatic angle they've gone for. I felt like this could have been grander than it actually is. But saying that, it is still a classy finish that has Thornhill bringing back that cinematic style with great aplomb. The melody at the end of this track, man, that is my jam. That is my jam.
I see. Yeah, this is my absolute favorite song on the album.
Wow.
That riff at the start, man, it just gets me. I really like the kind of more chill vocals. When everything comes in, you got that kind of just the nice chill drums. It's a bit like almost jazzy with the drums and the kind of, you got like the strings in the background. They're kind of hard to notice in the mix because it is still very Thornhill-y.
Of course.
But yeah, I absolutely adore it as an album and just a song in general. I'm kind of happy they didn't go bigger. I think it actually fits it because, say like you're watching a movie, okay, and I cut that's too recent. You don't have a massive ending and then credits roll. You do your massive ending and then you've got a little bit afterwards.
Of course.
That's how I kind of see it.
Which is, even as I almost knew the word you were going to say there because it makes such sense in my head. And you're absolutely right. It does work that way. It's a credit roll, so to speak, where you're right. You might have a big bombastic piece of music to end on an epic moment in a film, but then the credits normally will start off with a more mellow tune in most circumstances. However, that's not always the case with some movies. There are many movies I've seen that I adore where you do hit a credits and it's a boom, 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 and it's hitting like that, and it works as well. I think it all depends. It's a criticism that I have for this song, but it's not one that I will pin my flag to. Do you know what I mean? Like stake my claim.
But yeah. Don't die on that hill.
Yeah, because it's a good fucking track nonetheless, and I really like what they do with it. So it'll be a stupid thing to get angry or like, no, this is how I wanted it. It's like, I think I expected it, and when I didn't get what I expected, I had that initial, oh. And then I'm like, no, but it's still a really good song.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Talking through this, I mean, hopefully, if you're a fan of this album as we are, we've expressed the fact that we really, really like this album. Yes, we've used the term grower constantly throughout, but that's just the truth of the matter. But I don't think there's a single terrible song on this.
No, me neither. Not at all. For me, it is currently tied with Pup's album for like my personal album of the year.
I presume you mean the unraveling of Pup the Band? Yes. This cop. You know what, man? I these days I don't get outraged by much. I'm so mellow, and I adore my son's taste. I'm interested in whatever. But my God, no, the unraveling of Pup the Band is far superior to this. But that's just a personal thing more than anything else.
It's personal, isn't it?
Absolutely. But this is a strong album in that regard. I just ultimately, you know, when I wrote the review on the site, the score I gave it, I did it based off a number of things as well, where it was kind of like, okay, I also want to reflect and understand that this stylistic change will have problems, and this doesn't work and that doesn't work. And perhaps this, you know, it'll be really cool. You know, it's going to be really cool. The next album. I know that's crazy to talk about, but let's see how they take this sound and this direction and refine it.
I'd like to see a bit of a, because like in the same sense, you could do something soft and be like, actually, I want to do something a bit heavier. You know, you could mix the two, and I think that's a nice middle point because I really like this, and I also really like the stuff they did before. Put them together, and I'm game for it. You know,
it could be really fascinating because it'll be the third album as well. But also, you know, going with that, I'm fascinated to know what they would be like live now, because the mix of the old stuff and the new stuff, and I imagine they're going to have a nightmare of writing a set list that will work and will flow quite nicely, but also visually, what do you go for on stage? How do you stylistically approach this? Because the sound is so wide ranging. It's going to be an interesting next year or two for Thornhill, I think.
We're seeing them in November.
Where?
We are. The Electric Ballroom. They're with Bury Tomorrow.
Are they on that? Are they on that gig?
Yeah, they are. No, they are.
Bury Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh my God! How good is that show?
And Miss May I. How the fuck did you not know about this? This is like a major selling point.
No, because it's been.
This is like a major selling point.
Literally, we should have already been to this gig like 2 years ago.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, I'm mad that Thornhill aren't higher on the bill. They're the openers. They should be higher. But
oh my God! So Miss May I aren't the openers?
No, Thornhill are. How did you not know about this? This is like,
it's incredible. It's incredible. So that's 30 minutes on a bill that is predominantly metalcore and leaning towards that sound. That's interesting. I wonder if they'll keep it very simple then and maybe only do like 1 or 2 tracks, the heavier stuff from Heroine.
Maybe. We'll have to see in November.
Can't wait. That's incredible. That could be one of the gigs of the year then. I completely forgot about that. And I'm not even that bothered about seeing Bury Tomorrow nowadays. I'm more interested, like August Burns Red more than anything else. So that's going to be cool. All right. We've talked enough. Top 3 tracks. I have a funny feeling we're actually going to be quite close on this, barring 1 track. I'll do mine. I have chosen Casanova, Hollywood, and Varsity Hearts.
I have chosen Blue Velvet, Hollywood, and Heroine.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to throw in Casanova.
Nah.
Nope. All right.
I like other songs more.
Nope. Fair enough. There you go. Thornhill's Heroine. We like it a lot. We got thoughts on it. Do you? You know what to do. Drop them in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. You can check us out on gbhbl.com as well as on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Tumblr. Go to Patreon to help us out over there. That's patreon.com/gbhbl, as well as Big Cartel, where you can find some of our merchandise. We have a podcast running on SoundCloud and Apple Podcasts. And of course, if you like this video, do us a favour, hit the subscribe button and help the channel grow. Games, horror and heavy metal, what else is life for?